Hi viewers, in this video I will show you how I replaced the rear lower control arms and the sway bar links on a 2010 Jeep Patriot.
First, I parked the vehicle on my garage concrete floor. Then I measured the distance between the center of the wheel and the upper edge of the wheel fender. Later in this video, I will use this measurement as reference to adjust the position of the lower control arm and preload the bushings. This measurement is not required if the mounting bolts are tightened to proper torque when the vehicle is parked on the ground. Next, the vehicle was safely jacked up and secured with one floor jack, 4 jack stands, and 4 wheel chocks. Up north, the parts are rusty, so it helps to spray penetrating fluid on the bolts and nuts before undoing them. Here, you can see the lower control arm. Depending on years and options, the sway bar can be attached to regular sway bar links or bolt-style sway bar links. The mounting bolts and nuts shown here had to be undone with 18mm tools. The other main parts are the trailing arm, the shock absorber, and the crossmember. The first bolt I undid was the one holding the lower bushing attachment of the shock absorber. After I tried to undo the sway bar link, but the bolt broke in 2 parts because it was too rusted. The second mounting bolt was fastened to the trailing arm. It was a bit difficult to unscrew at first, but it finally came loose. The third mounting bolt was fastened to the crossmember. To be able to remove the mounting bolt, first I had to undo the 13mm bolt and lower the stay brace to make more space. I used a ratchet with a socket to loosen the nut and a ratcheting wrench to undo it. The bolt was still tight in the bushing, so I used a short flat bar to get it out. When the bolt was out of the bracket, I had no problem to remove the lower control arm. Finally, I removed the remaining sway bar link components, but the bolt broke again. Here, you can see how much the sway bar link was corroded. 3 rear control arm models are available for the Jeep Patriot. One with only a single hole on the upper surface. One with a hole on the upper surface combined with a welded bracket. And one with only a welded bracket. Those 2 models are compatible with both style sway bar links. And those 2 models are compatible with regular sway bar links. The genuine bolt-style sway bar link kits can also be replaced by different compatible products. I began by attaching the inner end of the lower control arm to the crossmember bracket. The bolt was only finger tightened and kept loose at that moment. While I was well positioned, I refitted the bolt holding the stay brace. The torque was set to 18 foot-pounds. Next, I positioned the trailing arm higher on a jack stand to easily fit the outer lower control arm bushing in the bracket. The appropriate position made it easier to align and insert the mounting bolt in the spherical bushing. Again, the bolt was loosely tightened. Then the jack stand was moved aside to lower the trailing arm and attach the shock absorber. Sometimes the shock absorber assembly must be twisted to align the lower bushing with the 2 holes of the lower control arm. I used a big screwdriver to align the parts together. Again, the bolt was loosely tightened. Following that step, I installed the aftermarket bolt type sway bar link. At that moment, the lock nut of the sway bar link was tightened to apply a minimal contact on the bushings. I can follow 2 DIY procedures to preload the bushings of this suspension system. But my preferred one is to lift the lower bracket of the trailing arm with a scissor jack to preload the bushings. To get the proper load, I used the measurement previously taken when the vehicle was parked on level ground. With this vehicle, the distance between the center of the wheel and the upper edge of the wheel fender was 17.5 inches. The other procedure is to simply lower the vehicle on a solid level ground to preload the bushings. So, with the vehicle safely jacked up, I tightened the mounting bolt holding the inner bushing to the crossmember. The torque was set to 70 foot-pounds. Then I tightened the second bolt, holding the outer bushing to the trailing arm. Again, the torque was set to 70 foot-pounds. The lower bushing of the shock absorber was tightened to 73 foot-pounds. Next, the wheel was installed and the vehicle was lowered on the ground. The vehicle was properly leveled and there was no more force causing a torsion to the sway bar. Then the sway bar linkage nuts were ready to be properly tightened. Normally, I tighten the lock nuts until the bushings are compressed a bit, then unscrew the lock nuts about one turn. Later, after the visual inspection, I perform the road test.
Installing common bolt style sway bar links is not an exact science, so refer to the manufacturer's guide for detailed installation procedures.